Today I want to do something a little bit out of the ordinary, and I want to talk about openings. In particular, how to study openings. And this one, I really want, I like all of these shows that I do. I want them to be conversations, but this one in particular, I want to be a conversation. And hopefully I get Greg in here before he leaves. And what I want to do is talk about how I think, as an old man who doesn't understand all the tech stuff that well, how I think openings should be studied. And so what I'm going to do is chart a little history for you all, just so you get a sense of how opening study has changed in my lifetime. And I'm hoping that that will be helpful in how we approach it, just thinking about how it used to be done. Now, way, way back in the day, there were these things called books, and there would be like opening manuals, and there would be specialty books on openings. And it was weird, right? Because you would get a book, and maybe it was 10, 15 years old, and maybe like the theory had moved on. But anyways, there were these books, and what I remember doing is I would have a notebook, and I would write down all these different lines in books that I thought were important. And I had like a big, just a notebook full of opening stuff that I divided into sections and stuff like that. So, and back in the day, it's important to remember that the people really thought that they had figured out openings. This is pre-computer. They thought like they knew the truth about what openings were. And what's fascinating, just thinking back on it, is just how wrong they were and how many doors have been opened. For example, when you think back on Fisher, he didn't play those openings because he thought like that was how you got a good practical advantage. No, he played those because he thought those were the best openings. He really believed that. So from that time, we evolved into what I'll call the chess base era, and that was like the 1990s. And right around this time in the 1990s, internet chess becomes available. Let me just say, chess base was an amazing thing. And one of the things I want to actually talk to people about is I want to get a sense of who is using chess base and just how you guys are using opening the study in general. I just want to hear about it. But I want to just say, for the historical record, the chess base was a big deal in the 90s because it gave us suddenly access to a lot more games, way less than we now have access to. But it gave us access to games, and it gave us a way to kind of order them and then to turn on a primitive computer. At that time, the computer would say things that were pretty absurd. You know, there were a lot of times that its suggestions were you could just see that they were wrong. Now, here's where it gets interesting for us, I think. From that time in chess base, what happened was people started being able to play blitz online. And this affected opening growth a lot because what people would do is test their opening ideas online. And what's cool about that age is like all of a sudden you got to play a bunch of very strong players. And by playing those players, you would get kind of opening debates in blitz, and it would just go back and forth, and people would look up the openings and study them and then create files based on what had happened in their blitz games. So it was a play for your opening repertoire in general. And, the weird thing about that, of course, we got to just address is if you play a bunch of blitz, you're not just doing openings, you're doing all kinds of weird stuff to yourself that's controversial for your own chess improvement. But that's how people did it. And if you talk to old-time GMs, that is how they improved their openings. And it was amazing to get the chance to play all these strong players, and they would be playing their opening novelties in blitz games. And then they would incorporate it into these files. Now, these files would become really long. Imagine a tree that's just really branching out, and it goes really deep. And I don't think anyone ever believed that they were going to remember all of the variations in their big old files, right? But they had it in there as a reference tool, and they would, kind of check up on it. And the cool thing about a blitz event is you go in there and you'd kind of be forced on the spot to try to remember as much as possible of it. Okay, so that I think brings us to the modern day where we then get Chessable. And Chessable, the way I think about it is like, I'm the guy who can't remember anybody's names. I walk into a party and there's John and there's Mary and there's Joey and there's, all these different people. I forget it instantly. And if there was an app where it would be show me a picture of Joey and I was forced to say the name Joey, after a while, I think it would really help. It would really help. And that's what Chessable has done. Now, Chessable, like ChessBase, there's a learning curve to it. It takes some effort to learn how to use the program. And I got taught by a 9-year-old. That sounds like a joke, but his name is Chess Latte. He's part of the ChessDojo community. He taught me how to do Chessable. I learned it on stream. He showed me the tricks. And I'm going to show you the tricks that he taught me and what I think is like the best use of Chessable. But that's where you guys come in. I want to hear kind of how you do things. And I'm sure there's a wide variety. I assume there's a wide variety of the way you do things. But before I do that, before I describe my situation, I want to get Greg in here before he goes. Greg, give me the down and dirty, the quick version of how you're doing openings these days. We might have lost him.
I'm muted, but I'm not muted anymore. When I was studying them seriously, it's tough. You don't want to fill your brain with too much useless knowledge, but you want to, make sure you know all the things. It really depends. I was doing a thing where I kind of only cared about playing one opening for white and black for everything. So I didn't try to learn 6 different lines against anything. I'm just I want to find the exact line that I want to play every single game. It's not because I'm playing more blitz and not tournaments where people are preparing for me. So it's maybe a little bit different if you have to worry about people prepping for you. Although I think under under 2,400 FIDE, you don't really have to worry about that stuff too much. If your openings are really solid, if you play E45, Marshall Gambit, and you kind of know the things that are happening, there's not much you can do, right? Magnus knows Nepo's playing the Petrov. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, he crushed him. But, it's there's certain openings that are just so good that even if your opponent knows they're coming, it just doesn't matter. So I would just, there's a few courses I really liked. I really like Gustafsson's course on the Marshall. But, honestly, all the top level courses are pretty good. Giri's courses seem pretty good. Lami's course in the Caro-Kann seems good. Shanklin's D4 courses. They all look really good. I just happen to only really do the E45 one. I learned it really well, so I feel really comfortable in that opening. For everything else, I kind of made my own files, which is it's not so common, but I just have my own, completely my own stuff. And I do feel when you do your own work, I would look stuff up in ChessBase, and I would move it over to Chessable. And when you do your own work, sometimes you learn it, you understand it a little bit better than when you just kind of read off a book. So that's kind of how I did it. For me, the only course that I use extensively is Gustafsson's E45. But I play the Grunfeld too, and Svidler's Grunfeld course had not yet been released, so maybe that's why I didn't do that. That's my story.
Okay,
and I would review the stuff every day when it would tell me to. I would make it so it didn't. I would have so many positions. I didn't want to I would change the internal setting so it doesn't show you positions every 3 hours. Right. It would be if I get something right, I'll see it in a few days, and then a few weeks, and then 2 months. Because I guess I trusted my memory. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, okay, good.
I don't want to. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Yeah, so what I'll then do is I'll describe what I think what I've come to like think of at least as best practice with Chessable, at least for myself. And then I want to hear, or I really do want to hear stories like Greg, just how people are doing it, right? Now, the first thing that's new. There's a couple of things that are new for me with all this Chessable and opening stuff. And then the big one is I finally got a desktop, and that is significant because if you run the computer, let's say Stockfish 14 or whatever version of Stockfish is available, on your laptop, you're going to get actually significantly worse results than if you are on a desktop. Now, is it a big deal? Well, it depends how you feel about it. Personally, I did it with a laptop for years, and I never really felt too bad about it, but maybe I also didn't know what I was missing. The next level up would be to rent out space on supercomputers and have them analyze positions for you. Here at the US Chess School, I believe we've had Eugene Perelstein on, and that's what he is doing actually professionally to a certain extent for several super GMs who I'm not even allowed to name because they're really secretive about that stuff. But he has a supercomputer or access, he's buying space on supercomputers online. They're analyzing the positions for him. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how that might work out in a bit. But like I said, that's just the next level. I don't think that's absolutely necessary, but it depends how serious you want to be about the computer stuff. Now, let's talk about Chessable. As I said, I was taught by a 9-year-old, but I've come to my own understanding of how to use it. Now, the first thing you can probably see here is if you are a Chessable user, you'd probably be stunned. I got this review all of it, like a gazillion variations. I think it's important with Chessable not to get sucked in to the idea of it wanting you to do it every day. In fact, I feel pretty strongly about just trying to do the opening study right before the tournament, kind of like you're cramming for a test. That will also give the ability to have a phase of your own chess growth where you look at a couple of your openings and then redo the files. And then when you redo the files, it's going to ask you to, or update the files, it's going to ask you then to review it once you put it in. Okay. So something I really want to stress is if you've listened to a lot of my spiels here on the US Chess School or just online, you probably know that I'm not a huge fan of studying openings, and that really I think going over your own games is the most important thing. So to that end, I'm going to show a game that I'm presently looking at myself. This is a game I played very recently, and I'm going to try to say a couple things about just openings by using this game. So this knight f3, it's a move that's been around, but it's a thing that's kind of caught on recently because the big supercomputers kind of like it. To me, it feels kind of like a gross move, like White hasn't figured out his development. Any case, one of the things I was talking to my friend Eugene Perelstein, as I said, he's using a supercomputer, and he's been on this US Chess School. We were just talking openings one day, and he turned his supercomputer on to this position, because I had this position once before, and I think I covered some of that game here at the US Chess School. In any case, I said, well, what I want to do is play f6 here, and then we get this kind of forcing variation. And I didn't know it the first time I played it. I just made it up at the board. But this was a variation that Korchnoi played ages ago, which kind of like made me feel good about it. Now in that game, the first game, it went like this, and we got this interesting endgame that I think roughly equal or something like that. But this guy I'm playing, not a super GM or anything, just a very, I don't know, he was rated like 2100 or something, played knight d3, and I'm pretty sure that's the move that that Eugene's supercomputer wanted. So first things first, we have evolved a heavy distance from when I was first like playing for my own GM title, where when you played at 2100, you were not going to get like very deep opening ideas. It's, in fact, usually you would win the battle of the opening without much problem at all. Nowadays, there's all kinds of spicy stuff that can happen in the opening to you from players you've never even heard of. So let's talk briefly about the position. First of all, I'm mostly on my own, but then I know from Eugene's computer that knight d3, I think, was his computer's top move. So let's just talk basics, because here's the next point I really want to stress before we go on to the deep end with talking about openings. Black, the sacrifice that Black has made is he's given up his dark square bishop, his best bishop. It's a big deal. But in return, he has very good development, and he has chances to knock out the white center. And of course, the bishop on f1 is a little funky. And whether my opponent knew it or not, he's kind of in the middle of this big modern way of thinking about chess, which the computers are really into, and the computers are pushing us to think about it, which is that the computers love space, and that's what White has here. He's got some space. Whereas the old timers, it was not so much. They understood that space was important, but the new algorithm, especially with Stockfish 14, really loves space. Now, here's the thing I want to say. My opponent played rook c1. I haven't looked at this with the computer yet. I am doing this old school on my board over here. And one fascinating variation I looked at just by myself was this one. And then White could play knight e2, knight c2, knight b3. I looked at all those variations. Here's the point I want to make. Studying the openings on Chessable is good, but studying your own games will actually be where you turn evil, because this sacrifice, knight d4, just has to be in your mind in terms of playing the French. It will come up more than once in a variety of circumstances. And so I'm trying to sell you on is the idea that that getting good at openings really comes, the meat of it will come in situations like this where you are looking deeply at your own games. Okay, I want to show you one more situation just to stress that point. We can debate b3. My opponent actually plays really, whether this was good or not, it was a very powerful idea dealing with, again, with space and developing his rook unconventionally on the h-file. I played knight d7. Maybe I could have played a5, rook h3. And I could spend a long time, going over this game, but the point, I'm just going to make one more further point, and that is we got this position, and now I have the choice of how to sacrifice the exchange. There's three ways. I can go rook f5 and then g4, rook f3, and then take on e5. I can take on f3 directly and then maybe take on h5. That's what I did in the game. And of course, yeah, that's all three, right? Rook f5 and then rook f3, or rook f3 directly, or excuse me, rook f3, knight e5. That was option C. And then the other option is rook f3, bishop h5. So what am I saying? This exchange sack happens all the time in the French, and it happens in slightly different circumstances, and getting to be a judge of what the positions look like, I think, is really how you become very strong in chess. So for example, do you like the following position? Boom, 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 boom. Or do you like the one that goes boom, 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 boom? Which one do you like more? Interesting question. Okay, and that's where, I am analyzing my own games like this. And very fascinating position to try to judge whether we like this one or the one that I got in the game with bishop h5 and rook e3. In both cases, my a rook is going to come to f8. And so, okay, so just to summarize, going over your games will get you like the dynamics of the game, and then will allow you, I think, to play the position even if you don't know it, right? Even if you don't memorize all the moves. Okay, good. Now remember, I'm going to ask people to come in, but first I just want to give a little rundown on how I've done this myself. As I said before, the thing that we used to do back in the day was we would have these really long files. Well, the first thing that happens when you go to Chessable is if you do a very long course on Chessable with different variations or alternative variations, it's not going to work out. And honestly, it's maybe a good thing that it doesn't work out. Because what it will do is it will force you to pare down your file to make it as succinct as possible, as small as possible. And that's where I think a lot of the courses that people buy are misleading, because a lot of these courses are just too big, even for GMs. They're just too long and they're too big, and they have a lot of interesting ideas in them. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to get to an objective truth, right? And they're also trying to make sure it's a thing that the computer approves of. And that's going to create these really big files that I don't think are actually helpful. Okay, so here's the thing I'm going to try to sell you on. I think the best way to use Chessable, to do openings right now, is to do it yourself. Now let me show you this little file I've got here. I have a book. I could show it, but it's on my bookshelf, on the Queen's Indian for Black. And the guy is named Ruiz, and he gives a long chapter about this bishop b4 variation. Super long chapter about bishop b4. And what I want to say about this is that when you look at my chapter, it's very short. It's very short indeed. And what you can do with ChessBase, and I'm interested to see how other people do this. I don't think ChessBase is necessarily the only way to do this. I think you can maybe use Lichess or other formats, and I want to hear how people do this, but I'm just going to describe how I do it on ChessBase, and I think you can do a similar thing with other setups. I look at the reference database here, and I'm creating the search booster because this is my first time, or this new computer is fairly new to me. Anyways, that search booster will give me a full rundown of what has been played in any given position. And using that, I can really quite quickly see where the main lines go. And really all I need to do, and this is why it's so important, I think, to do it for yourself, is get positions that I think I understand. And then I want to stop them. I want to stop them as soon as possible. And the computer then will help me answer questions like what to do in certain situations. What are the tricks in certain situations? For example, let's just look at randomly this one. And I'm going to flip the board here because I'm looking at this from Black. So we look at something like this. A5, what's the idea? A4. And then, of course, there's a little dirty trick with the B5. Okay, that's something that the computer turned me on to. There's many moves like this that the computer turns me on to. For example, let's look at, say, B3. And we just go back and forth. Snip, snop, B5. And the computer says, you're okay, boss, because you can give away the piece. Fine. And that's all I need to know. I don't actually want to know more than that. Or, for example, there's a very complicated line with knight d2. Fabi's played this, and I snip, and then I play b5. Is this complicated as all get out? Yes. But as long as I get this far and I understand it, and I have a sense of like what's going on. Done. Opening study, done. Now, something that will happen is this will evolve. Maybe I play a blitz game where I have some questions I didn't understand. Maybe I play an actual tournament game. I have some questions. And then what I do, right, is I can grab this thing. This is a beautiful thing of ChessBase. You just Control-C this bad boy down here. And then I use Chess Latte's rules for how to do ChessBase. So let's go back to, not ChessBase, Chessable. And what I would do is I would go into my Queen's Indian file. And then here's my G3 file. And here's a very important thing. I'm gonna just show how I would, here's how it looks right now. But if I wanted to create a new one, this is where it's really important. I want to show everybody. What you do is you say, you can create a course, right? Or you can import the PGN, right? These are my rules. Pay attention. It's very simple, but once you get it, you get it. You switch to copy and paste. I put my file in there, and then I select the course. It's going to be the Queen's Indian course, sometimes known as the QUID. Then it's very important I say create a new chapter for each new title. Now here's very important. If you miss this part, you will go directly to hell. You will not pass go. You will not pass. You will not collect $200. You must click here. Import all sub-variations as their own. If you do not do import all sub-variations as their own, you will just get the one basic file and you will not get tested on the sidelines. Then after I import that, it'll ask me, do you want to check it? Boom. And then I check it. Done, you know? And like I said, whenever I'm then ready to go to a tournament, and by the way, I think, you know, the most important thing after a tournament is you go over your games, and then there might be a little bit of time before the tournament. That's when you can review your files and update your files, check them. Don't worry about all the points and the yada yada. What it will do though is it'll give you like a day or two where you really go through all of your variations before the tournament. Okay, I might have a couple words of wisdom to add on top of that, but is there anyone, I would love to hear from anyone who can come in and just give me a basic rundown of how they do things. That's what I'm interested in hearing. Please raise your hand in the chat. I would love to hear just how someone else, how the young generation is doing this here. And something I'm going to try to do in the next little bit is to create a YouTube video, just 5 minutes, 6 minutes, showing people what I just did here. People are very shy, U.S. Chess School. It used to be we'd have big conversations, but then people got a little bit, got a little bit shy. One detail I'm going to add that my 9-year-old guide taught me here is that Chessable costs a little bit of money, but if you don't have any money, there's a way to do it. You can upload 5 courses, and they're not going to charge you anything, which is kind of cool of them. And if you have more than 5 courses, then you can archive some of the ones that you're not presently looking at. Yeah, and that is very helpful if you like I said, if you don't want to pay the money. And I think, for the moment, I will continue giving them a monthly fee, just partly to support them, I guess, but also maybe just makes my life a little bit easier. I think one of the things about it that is different, I think the thing that's especially different that I'm doing is other people are using other people's courses, and that I think it's kind of cool because it's like, oh, I got so-and-so's course and that person's an expert on it and they're like my guide. But the problem with that is like their intuitions are not the same as yours, first of all. So they're going to go in different directions. And they're going to stop in places that you don't necessarily understand. For example, that file that I've uploaded here is my own file. That thing was like 60 pages in this opening book that I got. It came out like 2017. And so you can see that this is not 60 pages. And in those 60 pages, there's a lot of things that I don't even understand, because there's positions that I would have to turn on the computer to understand why the computer wanted to do it that way. And so a mistake that I made when I first was building some files was building it the old way, where I just had too many variations in there. And then when you start using Chessable, you realize, no, you'll never get through it, first of all, and you'll never remember it if it's too big of a file. And I think that's one of the coolest things about Chessable, is it really forces you to squeeze your openings down, as if you're creating a movie and you're only allowed like a 2-hour movie. You're not allowed a 12-hour movie, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm not getting anybody. Everybody's afraid to talk. You guys, come on in. Tell me. tell me your opening story. I don't care if you're doing it on your phone. Maybe you're doing it on your phone.
I'm raising my hand.
Oh, good. Okay, come on in, Narayan.
Okay, so how I study is I like to include lots of openings into my repertoire.
Uh-huh.
So I study lines from different openings each day. And that's usually my way of studying. Like, I looked at some GM courses, and that's mostly like how I study for openings.
So how do you get your openings?
I use Chessable for openings.
So are you like buying different courses, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, I buy some courses. But sometimes I use the short and sweet courses.
Uh-huh. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So do you have any favorite courses?
Honestly, I like what's it called? Surya's Nimzo. I like Surya Ganguly's Nimzo course.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
That's some interesting lines.
So how often would you say you use Chessable?
Really often.
Okay. Yeah. So like that's interesting. And do you feel, how long have you been doing it?
Like 1 to 2 months.
Okay. Cool. And do you feel it's really helped you?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm learning some new things, so yeah.
And would you say that's the main thing you're doing with your chess right now?
No, I also like read some books and study on the chessboard.
Good. No, that's great. And do you have like, how many courses do you have on your Chessable? Because you said the reason I'm asking is you said you had a lot of courses, and I guess I was wondering, like, does that mean you're kind of doing a broad overview of all kinds of different openings, or how are you organizing it?
I'm mostly organizing, like, I have around like 5 to 6 courses. Like some are on strategy and most are on openings. Like, I have 1 course on strategy and the rest are openings.
Okay, cool. And what are your pro tips? If you could give some advice to the people out there, what's your advice for how to use Chessable?
You've got to study every day with Chessable because that's the only way the variations will register in your head. Like, sometimes when I have a tournament, I can't study that day, so yeah, sometimes I miss.
Okay, cool. Well, all right, Narendra, thank you so much. Let's try to get somebody else in here. Who else? I want to hear just the varied experience. You know, I feel like I feel like if I was a kid now, I would be really obsessed. I'd be very obsessed with stuff like Chessable. We got Chess Latte's obsessed, and he's the one who taught me how to use this stuff. That's why I want, some more tips in here, because I feel like obviously you guys are the ones who are teaching us how to use all of the newfangled stuff coming in, whether it's Chessable or something else. Maybe I don't even know about it. All right, let's bring in Austin here. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Austin. Ooh, wait a second. I lowered his hand on accident. Let me bring it back. All right, Austin, go ahead.
I think just be cautious when you're using short and sweet repertoires, because obviously that's just a preview of the main course. So if you do a short and sweet course, you probably shouldn't play that opening yet, because they only give you a part of it, so that you have to buy the rest of the course in order to actually play the opening well.
Right.
And if you try to use what you like, it's missing a lot of variations basically. So you're gonna be like halfway through the opening, and your opponent's gonna play something that isn't covered in the short and sweet course, and then you're gonna be screwed.
Okay, that's fair enough. So how do you do it? Like, give us a picture of how your Chessable study looks like.
I kind of just like go to courses, and then after I finish learning it, then I just click the review button. And then I'm not sure how you're supposed to use the video plus the course, but what I usually do is like I watch the video first, and then I go do the course.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I'm supposed to do that the other way around.
No, I don't know why it wouldn't be like that. Let me ask you something. When you're doing these other courses, like, first of all, let's just give us a shout out. What are some? I write down. I'm taking notes here. What are some of the courses you've liked best?
There's King's Gambit course. I like it because the lines, they're usually not more than 10 moves. Like there's like 500 something lines, but that's basically like literally every single way that Black can respond to the King's Gambit. But not all of them are like super deep lines, so you can actually remember it. The course author focuses kind of more on the ideas and the sort of recurring theme. Like, for example, if Black moves a knight, then you develop a knight that's opposite of his knight. So, for example, he plays knight c6, and you play knight f3, and he plays knight f6, and you play knight c3.
Okay. I think I understand. Okay. And let me ask you something. When you're going over these courses, this is the thing. This is truly, I'm asking this out of pure ignorance. Like, when I imagine doing somebody else's courses, for example, a lot of people were telling me, oh, Jesse, hey, buddy, you need to go do Anisha's French course. Well, Anisha's French course was all about playing the winner word, which to me is just like, it's a just different kind of French. It's just something totally different from what I think the French should be, because oftentimes you're going to give up your dark square bishop here. Now, obviously, he has a right to go ahead and do his course in the winner. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not my intuition. And that's an example I feel like in a lot of these courses, whether it's right here on move 3 or later down the line, somebody's going to make a move where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that move. I can't physically make this move, So what I'm asking is, like, do you have a problem when you're doing these courses that either you don't understand what they're saying or you don't like their moves?
I thought about that, especially for the King's Gambit. I also got John Shaw's King's Gambit book. And so John Shaw recommends knight f3 after he takes f4. And then the Chessable course author, it's a guy called AJ Bob or something like that.
Okay.
He recommends the Bishop's Gambit with Bishop c4. And so I haven't come to the conclusion whether if one is really that much better than the other one, but I'm going to learn both. So just in case, like, I discover a variation that I don't really like to play in one, I can just play the other one, or I can switch between the two if I know my opponent's not going to play the line that I don't like.
Okay. Now let's just talk about this, Austin. We got a comment from Chess Latte, my 9-year-old Chessable coach. And he says that the biggest difference about how we feel about chessable is that that he's not a GM and I am, i.e., that I have set opinions or something about what moves should be played, I think is what he's saying. And maybe there's some truth to that. I don't know, Austin, if you have any feelings on that, i.e., like when you're following a course, you're kind of giving over the responsibility of the moves to the course, right? You're just going to like do whatever the course tells you to do, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing, like for example, if you're studying classical games without a computer, you're just going to kind of trust the intuition of whatever maestro it is you're looking at, right? And you're going to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt in the same way you'd just be following in somebody's footsteps if you were doing a chessable course. I think that's what Chess Latte is saying. Okay, and Austin, tell us, how long have you been using it? Chessable.
Maybe like 2 years.
Okay. So we got 2 months and 2 years, the two different people. Tell us, first of all, let me ask, has there been an evolution in how you use Chessable over that time?
Nope, I've been doing it the same way for 2 years, and it's worked pretty well. So if it ain't broke, then don't fix it.
Okay, that's cool. And how do you notice it helping you?
I can beat people with all these like opening variations that course tells me are winning. Like there's this one game I played against this guy called Ethan Boa. The people in this class probably know him, but he's like a 1900 guy. And then he fell for like one of the opening traps that was in like 2 knights course, and then he got into like a completely losing position after maybe 10 moves, and then I just easily won the game. So even if you just win like 3 or 4 games from just opening traps from all the chessable courses you took, then it's probably still worth it, because those games are just very easy, and also they're very satisfying because your opening preparation paid off and you just steamrolled someone with an opening trap.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And do you do other stuff besides the opening as well, like on Chessable?
Not really. Their technology is about like spaced repetition and like memorization, so
right.
That usually works well with openings. But like if I'm trying to study strategical concepts, the problem with memorizing moves is every single position is different. So even if you're able to memorize all the moves for one position, it most likely is not going to work for another position. So, but if you're learning like an opening line, it's going to be the same every time. So then memorizing it will work.
Right. Makes sense. I know a lot of people, for example, like this. It's interesting, this course, 100 Endgames You Must Know, and that's kind of spaced repetition, right? That's an example. I guess you could use it in a place that isn't the opening, but you're right. In general, the spaced repetition is going to be for the opening. Okay, cool. Thank you, Austin. Thank you so much. Anybody else? I want to get more insights into how people are using Chessable, and maybe even if you aren't using Chessable, but have some other way. Anyway, really, of doing openings. Maybe you want to get on here and tell me openings don't matter at all. Trust me, your comment would be appreciated. I kind of just want to get a sense of how you youngins are using opening prep. And yeah, if somebody is using Lichess, I would love to hear how you were doing that, because I've come a little bit around with Lichess, especially when it comes to, let me just say, I teach a lot. And of course, as you know, I really stress to my students that I want them to go over their games. And then part of the process of going over your games is you're going to need a place to put it in, a file, and then like a folder to put that file in. And what I feel that Lichess has done really well, and maybe you could do this on Chessable, but I haven't seen it nearly as smoothly done as they're doing on Lichess, is you can do like a study on Lichess, and let's say you play a tournament, you can put all the games that you've analyzed into this little folder, this little chapter. And that's cool with Lichess. And so I'd be interested if someone who is using Lichess, could talk to us about their experience doing openings, because I imagine it's similar. I think one mild difference is if you wanted to turn on the computer, you're just going to be getting like the online computer, which I'm not a computer expert, but they tell me that that's not as good. So I think the gradation, in fact, is Stockfish 14 is going to be amazing anywhere, but the gradation is something like, again, I'm not a computer expert, but I'm just going to tell you what other people have told me, is when you do like an online one, say on chess.com or Lichess, and then you do it on a laptop, that's a step up. And then the next step up is if you do it on a desktop like I have. And then above me, it's going to be when you start renting out space on some supercomputer like Eugene Perelstein is doing. And I'm assuming also, we know the top players in the world are doing that as well. It's really weird with those top players, though, because a lot of times the ideas are so deep and weird that it's hard for them, to understand it. So just because you might get closer to what you feel is objective truth, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be all that helpful to do it. I've got a question. How good of a PC do I need to use to run ChessBase? This is from Austin, who just was talking to us. I think you don't have to have a great computer to run ChessBase. It might run, some of the functions might be a touch slower. The only thing that will really be affected with a nicer computer is your ability to run Stockfish within ChessBase. That's the thing that will be stronger, right? But ChessBase itself, you don't need a supercomputer. It is true that if you're running it, and particularly if you're running the computer, the Stockfish on it, it will suck up. If you're just using like a little tiny laptop, it will suck up your laptop and it will make its fan go crazy. So I guess that's another advantage of me and my new desktop, which I'm just kind of getting acquainted with now. Chess Tempo was also mentioned. I would love to hear if someone's using Chess Tempo. I haven't really played around with that site. And I think, for us old guys, it's important to not have too many new technological things. We can't do them all. But I'm sure that's also true for young people as well, where, for example, you can learn, there's a little bit of a learning curve with chess.com or then Lichess, and then learning all the little tricks takes a while. Chessable, by the way, I feel like ChessBase, it takes a little bit to know where to click. And if I didn't have my 9-year-old coach, it would have been a lot harder, man. It would have been a lot harder. And he taught me more than the tricks that I showed you today. How do you delete a course? How do you do this? How do you do that? It wasn't that easy for me. Okay, anybody else? Raise your hand, please, and I will call on you in the chat. I want to get at least a couple more voices in here about how they use things. Rio, come on in here, buddy. We need Rio in here to tell me how he's thinking. I'm going to ask him to unmute to tell me his life story, his chessable life story.
I don't use Chess Temple, but I use ChessBase.
Well, tell us what do you use? How do you do it?
I use ChessBase. I heard that Bogart uses Chess Temple. He doesn't use it, but he likes it.
So you use ChessBase? Great. And does that mean you just create some files for yourself? Is that right?
I check the games and then with the engine as well, and some of the good games as well.
Okay, beautiful. No, that's exactly the kind of answer I wanted to hear. So that's really like what we did in the 1990s. So how do you check it so that you memorize it? Or are you playing blitz games with it, or how are you doing it?
I usually when I play it, and then if I somehow manage to miss something, I can make it better. But other than that, it's fine.
So, the way, if I understand you correctly, you've got some files, and then when the new games come in, you check the new games against your files. Is that right?
Kind of, yeah. No, with my games as well.
With your games as well, yeah.
If it's relevant.
Okay, cool. And do you have trouble remembering your files?
I remember most of it.
Okay, let me ask you one more question, because what you're doing is what I did for decades. Is when you create the files, like okay, so when I was using ChessBase before Chessable came along, I didn't need to like make the file smaller, right? So I would have sometimes very deep analysis that went way past move 30 or whatever. Might not have been necessary, but there was no need for me to scale it back, you know? So I'm wondering, when you create these files, are you kind of limiting it to a certain amount of moves, or do you have like what's your method?
I don't limit it for some reason. Okay, I probably should.
Well, go ahead. I didn't understand.
I said I don't really limit it, but yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, I think it's because the weird thing is, unless you use Chessable, there wouldn't be any reason to really scale it down, you know? You would just get bigger and bigger. For example, I played all these Blitz games, and every time I played a Blitz game, or not every time, but every time it seemed kind of interesting, and I'd be playing some other GM or title player online, and they would throw some interesting idea at me. Well, then I would, check it, put it in my file, and then that file would just get bigger and bigger, That's kind of interesting. Just difference between the old school way of doing things, I think, and the Chessable way, which really, I think, forces you to bring it down a little bit. Okay, Rio, thank you so much. That was very interesting. Anybody else? Anybody else would like to come in here? I want to hear at least a couple more voices. How about Zephyr? I'm going to ask Zephyr to come in. He might not even be watching, He might be watching the tube or something. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to come in.
So, I like, with me, ChessBase is, I like ChessBase more.
Uh-huh.
And ChessBase is like, the good thing is that like sometimes when I play games and there's something that really, really surprises me out of the opening, I always like put it in my ChessBase files. And like, so you said like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger like every single time.
Right.
Yeah.
So who turned you on to ChessBase?
For me, I think it was my coach.
Uh-huh.
But I still don't know how to use it very, very well. I'm learning by like every day.
How long have you been using it?
Let me think. I think it's either 2 years.
Okay, no, that's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right now I think I have ChessBase 15.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm on my tiny computer right now, and it's on my PC, so I can't like check it. But I think it's 15. Yeah.
And when you start cooking on it, when you turn on the engine and stuff, does it suck up all of your energy on your computer?
Well, because it's on my big PC, no. But there's this thing. So when you go to different places, I normally connect the device that I have to the computer, to the ChessBase, to the computer on ChessBase, and there it sucks up a lot of battery because it's a regular computer.
Right. And have you played around with Chessable at all?
With Chessable, no, not really. I have a few courses that's free, and I get endgame studies on there a lot. And I know it's normally for openings, but there's not many openings that I don't know already that are free.
Okay,
and
right.
I'm not going to spend the money that much on Chessable.
Right.
Because I already have ChessBase and like Chess Tempo and Chess.com and Chess.
What do you do with Chess Tempo? Because I'm not really too.
Chess Tempo, I have tactic. You do tactics on there, and once or twice I used it for opening. It is a good tool for opening repetition.
Oh, so you can do like something similar to Chessable on Chess Tempo?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Here we go.
There's also a feature on ChessBase that's replay training. You can check all your files. It's just for the main line, but you can check your main line.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay, well, thank you for sharing. That was great. One thing that he said that I want to echo is, I just tell a coach story here. So I had this very talented kid, about 2,200, and at around 2,200, he was becoming interested in openings, and but he hadn't done that much work. He had gotten there really just with skill. And I said, well, let's get you some chess space. And it was a very big learning curve for him. It was very difficult for him, psychologically even, because there were so many things that he had to learn with chess space that took a while. So, for example, let me just give you some quick examples that if you didn't know, it would just maybe make you scream, right? So, Jesse, you closed down your chess space. You closed down your chess space? That's terrible. So, for example, let's say, oh God, I just, okay. So, see, ChessBase does, here, let me give you an example. So there's a new computer, I'm just setting it up, but it got rid of my files here, and I have to reload them. And why ChessBase did that to me, no one knows. And so that's an example of ChessBase screwing with me and everybody else. Can I fix it? Yes. Do I know how to fix it? Yes. And let me just show, these are just a bunch of games. Let's just pick this one up. This is a game from 1572. Like the trick, for example, to know that here I can Control C this, and grab it is kind of a big deal. And then if I go, let's say over here, and I do a new board window, it's kind of a trick too that I know I can just Control V it and put it in the board window. All kinds of stuff like that, where there's little tricks of the trade. Chessable has it too. It's not immediately obvious. So with all these sites, like there's a learning curve just to get the technological details right. They can be very frustrating. For example, Chess Tempo, I don't really know anything about. It's probably a cool site, but I can't learn. I could, but I don't really want to learn new technologies, right? So I got ChessBase and Chessable. And honestly, part of what I was interested in doing today is to hear what you guys are doing. And for the moment, I guess my takeaway is Chessable is the biggest one, but we got Chess Tempo, and a good amount of people are using ChessBase, which is cool because ChessBase really is the old time program. And I'm going to guess that for the most part, the people using ChessBase are the ones whose coaches pushed them on it. Just like in my own coach's story, I pushed it on my student. Okay, good. I'm going to leave it there. And as I mentioned, what I will do is I will upload to YouTube a brief synopsis of how I do the opening study for myself. And that will be, if you missed it or you just want a quick rundown, I'm going to post that hopefully in the next couple days. All right, everybody. Goodbye. It was a great